Hello, and welcome to the town hall. We're so excited to be here tonight. We are talking about Preptober, or getting ready for NaNoWriMo. I'm sure everyone is pretty familiar with Nano by now, but it is where we write 50,000 words or a novel in the month of November. And so it's the time of year where we start getting ready for that because it's coming up. So we have a wonderful panel here today. I'm so excited for everyone to be here. Thank you so much for coming. And let's introduce everyone. So why don't we start with Kirsha? If you want to introduce yourself, Kirsha.
Hi, I'm Kirsha Fox, and I write adult fantasy.
Wonderful. So glad to have you on. She's one of my favorite authors of this year. So we're so happy to have you. Christy Stratus, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I'm Christy Stratus. I'm an author of historical suspense, and my series is called the Dark Victoriana Collection. I have 2 novels and 2 short stories in that. And I have started writing more recently, like last year, Gaslamp Fantasy, which is on Kindle Vella. I'm also the co-host of Lurking for Legends, which is also an author publishing type show, and I'm an editor for my company Proof Positive. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thanks so much for being here. And then Miss Tanya Todd, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you for having me here again. I am Tanya Todd. I'm an author, actress, and filmmaker in Las Vegas. I do screenplays, I write short stories, I write novels, and right now I'm working on preparing to direct my first short film. I'm also the host of an author meet and greet called Dime Grinds, which meets once a month virtually now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting that you're going to be directing.
Yes. Oh. It's nervous excitement.
Oh yeah, nervous but so exciting. And then we have Miss L.M. Drew. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Elle. Thanks for having me back. I write paranormal erotic romance featuring plus-size heroines, but I've been writing fan fiction for 20 years, which is where years of experience of NaNoWriMo comes in. I have 4 books out so far. I have Bear Shifter Romance and Wolf Shifter Romance. And I have another book coming out November 29th. So my NaNoWriMo month is very full.
Oh, nice. That's actually my birthday. So happy birthday to me and your book.
I did it last year on the 30th, and I decided to just be crazy and do it again this year. So.
Oh, love it. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so excited. So Nano is kind of its own, hello, everyone, its own chaos, but like can be wonderful chaos, right? Because a lot of us kind of, if you're anything like me, you procrastinate a lot on your writing. I know that can't be said for everyone on this panel, because I know Christy Stratos even has a Patreon that she posts to regularly. So I know she's on top of her game. But yes, what are your guys' experience with Nano, if any?
Sure. Yeah. My personal experience has been, I learned the first year that I really needed to not aim for the 50,000 words. So I do my own thing because the chances of me making it to 50,000 in 1 month is pretty slim. So, for me, I just tend to set a goal that is both achievable and a challenge, sometimes like with a stretch goal. So I've even gone as low as 10,000 words if that's what I think can possibly be doable. But, for me, it's a little bit of a challenge. So, I love the community of it. That's part of what I think is the best part of Nano, actually. All these writers coming together and being able to chat about, well, how difficult it is, and also just the fun of it, right? That's part of what I love.
Oh, I love it as well. I know one person was saying, I saw on social media, they were just like, yeah, Inktober is great. You have all the artists posting sketches all month. And then the month of November comes and all the writers are just like screaming in the background, like because it's so challenging to do. Elle, you look like you were going to say something. What's your experience with Nano?
Well, I've been trying Nano for probably as long as I've been online. I don't want to say that I started in 2002 because I don't think NaNoWriMo was around then, but it feels like I've been attempting it forever.
Right.
And I could never do it because November has always been a very busy month for me. Just lots of birthdays and events that happen in November.
Yeah.
And I finally one year attempted to do a NaNoWriMo in a different month, crashed, like completely blew it out the water. And last year was actually the first year that I completed, no, 2 years ago was the first year I completed NaNoWriMo in the actual intended month.
Yeah.
So.
November can be hectic for sure.
Yes.
I know you mentioned there's birthdays, but there's also Thanksgiving for us in the US. And so how do you guys kind of deal with the holiday week?
I just know I'm going to be super busy, so I just plan to do nothing. And then if I get anything done, I'm on top of it.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I know a lot of people kind of try to stack their writing to get ahead so they can kind of take that week off for Thanksgiving.
I never take a day off per se unless I'm on set, but I would say that I would, plan accordingly. If you're getting up to put a turkey in the oven, you can just stay up and do your writing while that turkey is cooking. You don't need to go back to bed, and the other prep work can be done after you're done with your writing. And most people probably won't be either at your house or awake yet, so it's really good writing time.
Right, for those that are getting up at dawn to put turkeys in, that might be a good option for you. So I want to back up a little bit and let's talk about in general as writers. What are your usual methods for writing? Let's start with Kirsha. Do you want to go first?
Oh, I'm absolutely a plotter.
Okay.
So yeah, when I'm writing, I start out with my characters and their arcs, their wants, their motivations, and I figure, okay, they're starting here, they need to end up here, and then I figure out all the little plots along the way. And then
and it works. It works. Like I said, one of my favorite authors this year that I've read. You're a plotter. How about you, Christy? What's your usual method for writing?
I am the opposite. I'm 100% pantser and I can't figure out plotting at all. It just, it's never worked for me. I try so hard. I even tried this year, like following a whole way of doing it. And I got like something like 5 chapters in, and then I just can't come up with these ideas until I'm writing. So I am a hardcore pantser / discovery writer. And that's what I do during Nano too. And I do come out sometimes with like a garbage draft at the end, but I know where I need to go and what I need to rewrite and what the story isn't and what it is. So that is it's pretty rough, but that doesn't matter. That's what it is all the time anyway.
Right. And I hate the idea that people feel like writing is wasted if it's not in its final form when we first write it. But a lot of people do figure out their draft as they're writing and they tell themselves the story for the rough draft. And it's completely valid, 100%. How about you, Tanya? What's your method for writing?
I'm more in between the two of them. I don't enjoy writing a synopsis or writing an outline. To me, that part is very boring. But I need to have some idea of where the story is going before I can begin. And I find that when I do try to go with the outline method, the characters change the story anyway. So it was, for me, it was a waste of time sitting down and deciding all of these things that are going to change when you introduce the characters to what your ideas are, So I give them room to breathe. I have ideas about what I would like to happen, but if they change course, I go with them.
Yes, and I am 100% about updating outlines. If you make an outline and it changes as you're writing, like you're not married to the script. Like, so feel free to update as you go. But I also understand that, some people don't like writing an outline in the first place. How about you, Elle? What's your usual method?
I call it plotting to pants is my personal style. I typically speaking, before I even start working on the book, I already have this whole story written in my head, beginning, middle, end. Like before I've even opened up a Word document, I've already written it in my head. So then I just kind of write down bullet notes, but I don't put the specifics in. I see what happens once we get in there. So I always call it plotting to pants. I plot enough that I kind of know, about how many chapters we're going to have. and about where I'm at in the plot. But once we get going, I'm pantsing it all the way.
Okay. I feel, yeah, plotting to pants is a great term. I love that. I can relate to a lot of you guys on this, even though we're kind of, because I feel like it's plotting and pantsing, it's a spectrum. So like we're all kind of on a spectrum with it. And I myself need to know like the end and where it's going, and I set kind of a goal for each chapter. So this chapter I want to develop this relationship between the characters, and the next chapter I want to introduce a plot device or foreshadow or whatever. That really helps me so that I don't just sit down and stare at a blank page and kind of get that freeze effect where I'm just like, oh gosh, what do I do now? So Nano and like getting ready for Nano is all about kind of time management, which I know like can be one of the hardest parts of Nano, is that you are on a deadline. You are trying to get it done in the month of November. So what are your best tips and hacks for time management and kind of organizing the 50,000 words into a month?
Well, I'll go because I am a big scheduler in general. I plot out the entire week in advance. I have my schedule each day in 15-minute increments. I check my calendar and make sure I'm taking into account everything that is going on each day. This way, I wake up each morning knowing exactly what I have to do. There's no wasted time getting ready to do any of it. And I find it helps me to be extremely productive. Now, I know that things happen. And, you know, I will adjust my schedule accordingly each night. But bottom line, if you're prepared going into it, you're more likely to tackle it head on rather than, you know, gathering your tools, so to speak.
Right. You're like in that mindset to write immediately. Now, I want to ask Tanya real quick before we move on. Yeah, same Catherine. Yeah. Tanya, do you write at the same time every day? Do you find that helps you?
Yes. And NaNoWriMo is actually what helped me to learn how to do that. I never went into this, you know, expecting to reach the 50,000 word goal. But for years, because I'm involved with acting and hosting and all of these other things, I found I was getting more and more depressed. And I tracked down the source to being that I wasn't putting my writing as a priority in my life. I wasn't getting to it. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to try NaNoWriMo for the first time. And what it did is it helped me develop good writing habits to show up at the same time every day. And turns out the muse shows up with you if you do that.
Yeah, I can understand that, because like for me, I find that I write better at night, which is kind of hard because nighttime is when you're supposed to be like unwinding and getting ready for bed, and that's when my brain kind of kicks into gear and is like, let's think about all the things we were supposed to think about like 8 hours ago. So I understand like everyone has kind of that sweet spot of when to write and when not to write. How about you, Kirsha? What tips do you have for time management?
Well, I live in a house with like a lot of little kids, so I'm taking care of them most of the day. So most of my writing happens in the evening when everyone's winding down or after everyone else is asleep. But if I get any writing done during the day, that's always a bonus. I usually carry like a little notebook with me at all times, so that if I have inspiration, I write it down really fast. So that time, by the end of the day, I've got all of these accumulated ideas. So once I do start writing, they just pour out really fast because I've already done all of the mind work for it. So
how about you, Christy? What tips do you have for organizing your time?
Definitely, if you can, as Tanya said, putting a specific time aside, if it's possible. And I know that that can be really hard coming from a past life in the corporate world, where it was just like 24/7 work, you know, no breaks. So, you know, I get that. But if it's possible to put aside however much time per day and sort of know that it's coming and when you have it, it's a lot. You can kind of train your brain to be ready. And so these days I write every morning. So I get up ahead of when I want to start the day, at least an hour. And that's the time I use. And I found that it works really well because I haven't looked at my email. I haven't looked at social media, nothing. So I'm starting with sort of a blank slate. And that works really, really well for me. And the other thing is writing sprints for sure. So, and especially in a group, if you have like a group of friends or a couple other writers, it doesn't matter if it's by yourself. I remember when I first tried writing sprints and I set the timer for 15 minutes and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. It's too much pressure. Absolutely not going to happen. And I was shocked that I just like took off writing. And, not all of it is usable. Some of it is just me getting ideas out of the way that can't really work, but I needed to get them down and kind of like move them aside so I could get to the good stuff. So writing sprints are definitely a big part of NaNoWriMo for me.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that. I love writing sprints because the accountability actually gets me writing when I'm just like kind of in freeze mode and I'm just like, okay, I know I want to write this next bit, but I kind of agonize over the words sometimes, and knowing that someone else is like writing and going to ask me my word count at the end definitely like kind of kicks my butt into gear for that. So I am a huge fan of writing sprints. And how about you, Elle?
For me personally, NaNoWriMo really taught me to write every single day. For a long time there, though, I have 2 children, one of whom is very young. So trying to find time every day, I swear every day that I wake up and say, I'm going to write, at this time before anyone wakes up, that's always a day that everyone wakes up. So I can't really go with the time, or it's the night that like a child won't go to bed. For me, it's all about just finding the time. I always say that my books personally write themselves if I can just find the time to actually sit down to write them.
Okay.
But it's all about, for me, finding time every single day. I will have some days where I write a lot of words, particularly depending on where I'm at in the plot. I say that the 3rd act breakup always takes me twice as long to write than the other 3 acts of the book.
Right.
But as long as I'm finding the time in the day, but I'm personally not a set time of day writer just because my life does not allow for that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people with families at home that can relate to this. And yes, I love this comment. I like writing the story for myself as much as readers. Yeah. Writing sprints are great. Yeah. I think a lot of people who have families, it's hard to protect our writing time. Like Tanya was saying, it's so important to prioritize our writing time for ourselves and our mental health, and, having our creativity kind of have a vent for us. So how do you guys protect your writing time during Nano? Because I feel it's really important to do that.
Learn to say no.
I'm wearing this shirt for a reason, and it's to remind you to say no.
I love how you both have the same thought. Yes. It's so hard I know for me personally to say no to things, but yeah, that's definitely something that you need to learn in November, right?
And part of it is you have to communicate to people that this is my job. I'm working. So I have work to do. If you call it a job, then people will be more respectful of it. Because too often people who aren't writers, they don't get it. They think it's just a hobby. But no, this is what we're doing. This is our work. So if you use the terminology that indicates that, I'm not saying that no one here treats it like a job, but if you tweak your language a bit, other people will hear it that way and maybe give you a little more respect in that area.
Right. I think that's a very valid point. What we say is not necessarily heard the way we intend. So being intentional with our explanations of like, hey, I'm writing from 1 to 3 p.m. today. Leave me alone. Being very clear with our expectations.
I frequently actually say that to baby authors, is that you have to treat this as a job. You have to set time. You have to treat it as a business. If there's money involved, at some point in time, you have to treat this like a business. And yeah, it can be a hobby and something you enjoy, but your time in this is precious. This is a job that you're working. Right. So you've got to respect it as a business and speak to others as your business, because it is your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I guess the only other thing, I completely agree with everything that you two ladies said, 100%. It's so important. And like Tanya was saying before, she felt really low when she wasn't putting her writing first. And I get that kind of thing too. And I find it's like you're not respecting yourself in a way. And you're pushing yourself to the side. So it becomes important both to you and, I mean, like personally, internally, and to protecting your time. And the other thing is like, when I was doing the corporate thing, and I had so little time, it was precious. I would just try to use every moment I had. So when I would go somewhere and, one of the classic things is taking a lunch break, and trying to use that time. And like, I barely had a lunch break. So even that was, going somewhere to pick up food and just spending 15 minutes just doing it,
With a notebook.
anything I could fit in. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes if you can't protect that time, you can sort of squeeze it in somewhere. And, dictation can be super useful for that too, if you need to dictate into your phone or something like that, because you don't even have time to write it out.
Yeah. And then Kirsha, I know you were saying you have a lot of young kids at home. So how do you kind of balance the mommy, I need you with your own sanity?
I have to prioritize them first, like that's family and everything. But after that, it's writing.
Right.
So that means that oftentimes my house gets a little bit trashed. I also homeschool, so they never leave.
Right.
So they'll be doing school and I'm right there with them typing away, and I'll stop to help them with the math problem and say, okay, you're doing great, and keep on going. I can often be rereading my own work back to myself, because you're supposed to read out loud after you've written. And so I'll read out loud as I'm folding laundry so that I can stay on top of the chores, but also get my writing done. So I just have gotten really good at multitasking.
I think, every mom kind of has that superhero quality of multitasking and all that. I used to think I could multitask, and then I was like, let's be realistic, I cannot. I definitely jump from task to task, but not necessarily like being successful at 2 tasks at the same time. But I love that tip of, while you're doing something that maybe doesn't require 100% focus, like laundry or dishes, that you can be doing stuff where you're writing, whether that's like thinking about the story, reading aloud while you're editing, or any number of things. That is a great tip. And my next question, I know we have kind of a range between plotter and pantser here, but how do you guys tackle plot in general? So whether that's off the cuff, or plotting, like what is important for you guys to know before you begin writing, and how do you plot for yourselves? Loaded question, I know.
I'm the plotter, so I guess I'll go first.
Yes, please.
Oftentimes I start with sort of a general idea of what message do I want my book to come across with. Because I feel like anyone can tell a fun adventure, but it's the books that sort of you come away with something that really mean a lot to you. So that's very important for me, is what are my readers going to pull from this story? A lot of times it's exploring themes of loving yourself despite what society might be telling you. So I start with the message. I start with the characters, their motivations, their society, and then
okay, in a minute.
And then I guess from there, it's like just imagination. And I do plot, but a lot of times my characters do have different ideas. Sometimes you write out a whole chapter and it's just not getting you where you need to go, so off it goes. Sometimes they surprise you. Your characters are talking to you and they're like, maybe if we do it slightly different. And I'm like, that's great. You're brilliant.
I totally can relate to that. Yeah,
I do plot, so I do need to know where I'm going, but the stuff that happens in between can go any which way. Sometimes you get surprised yourself.
Yeah, I think we all can relate to, to getting surprised by our characters as writers. Anyone else? So for Kirsha, for myself, I would agree with this too. Characters, motivations, flaws, what drives them, 100%. I feel like I need to know and understand before I begin a story. Usually I'll get like an idea, or a character will like kind of spring to life in my head, and then I start to think, okay, like what is their story? What is happening to them that I want to follow along with? But definitely knowing your character is one of the first steps for me. What about for you guys?
We all want to say something.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I'll just call people. So Elle, go ahead.
Oh, you're on
You're
mute.
muted. You're muted, hun. I can see she's having a very exciting conversation. Oh, okay. Okay,
Oh, is she
we'll
having
come back to that.
technical difficulties?
Yeah, we're having a little bit of difficulty. Unfortunately, the weather where they are is not very great right now, and so understandably, they're kind of in and out. Tanya, how about you?
I don't sit and think about plot before I get started.
Okay.
Usually, if I'm writing something, there's the rare occasion where a writing prompt will be, if you're taking a class or something, or
Yeah.
you're attending writing group meetings and you'll play around with a writing prompt. But usually it's because some character is talking to me. So then I will just sit and talk with the character and find, okay, well, what is it that you want? And what's getting in the way of that? And from there, it'll just kind of unfold. But I wouldn't say that I would sit down and start writing their story until I know what the end is going to be, what the resolution is going to be. And then I will write toward that resolution, in my mind, and what little control I have, which is funny because, I told you I have these 15-minute increment schedules. I'm so controlling about that kind of stuff. But when it comes to writing, it's a different part of my brain and the characters just take over and I have to step back and let them control this world and this story. And sometimes I get in arguments with them where it's like, no, I'm trying to make this happen. Could you please go along? No, that's not what I would do.
Right.
Or, I have this character trying to accomplish something and the other character is coming up with some kind of counter for everything that I'm writing. It's like, this is not how this was supposed to go.
Right. It was supposed to be so much easier. I think we can all relate to that. Sorry. Elle, welcome back. I know you're having some difficulties with the weather, so.
I'm so sorry. We have really bad winds here, so the internet keeps getting knocked out. I actually don't really get to know my characters too well. That's one of the things that I don't really plan too far ahead. I kind of let my characters figure themselves out. I know a few basics, but I let their personalities, I let them tell me how they respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of discover them in the moment, as we're going. Sorry.
Yes. Oh, no worries.
It's 8:30 a.m. here.
We get it. We really get it.
We all get it. Yeah. Cute little face pops up in the corner. We love it. Yeah. Yes, I find that super interesting. Because to me, I feel like I have to know my character so well. I'll free write about them and everything to get to know more about them and to understand them, because otherwise I feel like they can't tell me when I'm going in the wrong direction with the story. But I think that for a lot of authors, what I hear all the time is that characters are kind of fully formed in their heads, and so they go off on the adventure and they're just reporting on what happens. So I think that's completely 100% relatable. How about you, Christy?
Yeah, as an extreme pantser who knows almost nothing going in, I pretty much start with a feel to the novel, and I don't know necessarily the characters or even what the setting is going to totally look like. It's a very general vibe that I get, and it's hard to kind of explain aside from that. And I know when it's time to start. I've been mulling it, and I have the playlist all set. I know what music I need to go with it. And I also I usually start a Pinterest board to start visualizing these things, which will help me along, especially during Nano when I need to move a little bit faster. So I have that Pinterest board, and if I get stuck, I might, just look through that, because ambiances really help me. They're very important to my writing. So of course, as the characters come up, they tell, the whole story is told by my characters. I don't know anything ahead of time. I just experienced what Tanya was talking about. I had a plan and I was super excited about it. And it just didn't happen. It couldn't happen. I was so
Right.
I tried so hard to force it and it just didn't work.
Right.
So I tried to force it and then I had to rewrite it because it doesn't work. But,
Yeah.
what was I going to say? One of the things that happens sometimes during nano is if you get stuck, and especially as a pantser, you don't know where you're going. You don't even know what the end is half the time. And so with that kind of a thing, I try to just push ahead in any direction. Just, I'm usually like headed somewhere, but I push
Right.
ahead in any direction, whether I have a clue whether it's right or not. And you can tell relatively quickly whether it's right, and it'll start to feel weird or off, or you'll kind of feel like, okay, it's right, but it'll need to be rewritten or something like that. At least for me, that's how it is. So I just start to push, and sometimes I'll see, okay, I'm pushing here, but actually I'm going to need another scene before that. Regardless,
Right.
it's still productive because you're learning more about what's coming. So, that's kind of my tip, is if you get stuck and you have no idea where you're going.
Yeah, I love that. I think we should talk about tips for writer's block. I always heard writer's block kind of happens because you're trying to force your story in a place where it's not meant to go. And so one tip I have for when I have writer's block is to take like a secondary or a minor character and write from their point of view. Like it'll never go in the book maybe, but you can have like a kind of an insight or a breakthrough just looking at the story from another perspective. Do you guys have any tips for like when you get writer's block?
That's called a one-shot in fan fiction. I've done that more times than I can tell. Someone recently recommended to me that that's good Patreon content, in that you can offer this outside thing. And I have done that more than once. One of my favorite things in my own storytelling, I write romance, but is if the story is being told from another point of view, they're going to call it, a comedy, or, they're from another point of view, it's a completely different story. And to write it from an outside point of view looking in, like, can you believe these two?
Right. I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Bonus content. Yeah. That's a great idea. Writing it down.
I write out of order, so that really helps, because if I'm in a tragic sort of mood, I can go to somewhere sad. If I'm happy, so as long as I string them together in the right order later, it's okay to write them in any order that I wish to.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of plotting, is that we get to, like, I already know chapter 40 is going to be about this, so I can write chapter 40 whenever I want to. That is one nice thing about plotting, and kind of how I wrote my first book, is I would just go by my mood and be like, I'm going to write this chapter today. I do find that my personal writing methodology changes with every book, with short stories and all of that stuff. So I don't always write out of order now, but it really did help me get my first book out.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever have writer's block. There are times where, I'm struggling to move forward because maybe it's just not something I want to write right now. Maybe it's too sad and I don't want to deal with it. Maybe it's, I know that what I'm doing is just really ugly prose and I'm just so frustrated that I can't fix it. But I wouldn't call it block. It's a bump. And I will either write around it, and what will happen is, when I'm in the shower or I'm doing a workout, the answer will magically come to me when I'm not writing,
Right.
But you have to put in a little bit of the work and just write it the ugly way. Just put down stupid, ugly words on the page, and then it'll come to you later because you put in that work. You have to lay the foundation.
I think, it's kill a character. Perfect. Yes. Especially if you write horror, which I know Anita writes a lot of horror. She amazing multi-genre writer though. She is all over with her stories, and I love it. And she writes poetry too. I love that idea of we need to give ourselves permission to write ugly, because a lot of times, we freeze and have that writer's block response because we don't want to write poorly. And it's like, it's called a rough draft for a reason, right? We didn't invent the bad rough draft. Like, everyone's been doing that for millennia, I feel like. So yes, give yourself permission 100% to write just an ugly rough draft for anything, not even just Nano. what is your guys, sorry, I always say you guys, it's such a Midwest thing, and it's an awful habit I have. What are your kind of advice or tips for someone who is new to Nano, getting ready to jump into it in a couple weeks? What's your best advice for them?
This should be fun.
Yeah.
Have a ball. Don't get so caught up on word count. Don't obsess over word count. Just have at it. Jump right in, hit the ground running, and
Mm-hmm.
just have fun with it. It's okay to write the silliest stuff you want to, but the practice is to help you write, create art, create your art.
Absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people, first time writers. I see this all the time, especially on Twitter. Twitter is like a big nano sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, so I see a lot of first time nano participants saying that they're stressed and they're feeling really bad about themselves because they can't keep up. But, like I said, you can set a lower goal. You don't have to do 50. You can aim for 50,000 and just know that you may or may not get there, or you can set a lower goal. I mean, nobody says you have to set a 50,000 word goal. If it's,
Mm-hmm.
just a few thousand that you can get, and you find that to be a reasonable goal that will make you feel, okay, I got somewhere and this nano thing works for me, that's fine. You can readjust as you go too. Like, we don't have to stick strictly by, the set of rules or something like that. So I think
Absolutely.
that mindset of just, like you were saying just before, just having it be productive and fun in your way and adjusting as you go along, especially if it's only your first year, you have to kind of like get used to it in a way. And a lot of times the first year is going to be different than the other years. At least it was
Absolutely.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize just how it was going to be. I was so determined to make the 50,000. And then of course I was feeling low at the end, but you
Mm-hmm.
just don't have to do that. You really don't. So yeah, definitely make sure that your mindset is just the writing and not so
Right.
much, I have to make it to this goal, or I'm not good enough, or, not a
Right.
good writer or anything like that.
Right. There's a lot of shame wrapped up and guilt wrapped up into this idea of failing to do nano or
Yeah.
failing to do it properly. I am kind of like Christy, and where if I do nano, I'm not aiming for 50,000 words. I set my own goal for nano, where it's like, I know Tanya is an advocate of writing every day, but that can be very hard for me personally. And so that might be my goal for nano, is just that I'm going to write every day, even if it's just for 15 minutes. But that'll be what I'm working towards, instead of something daunting like 50,000 words. Because we have to remember, like, goals need to be achievable for us in order for them to work in our favor. And this is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be camaraderie between writers, and just having that support. What about for everyone else?
I think that
So
Christy's advice was great,
Yeah.
because what she's saying is, don't burden yourself with all of this stress with goals that you can't accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay. Go into it trying to determine, what can you accomplish? What are your goals? If you
Right.
want to set it for 10,000 and you get going and you realize, hey, I'm doing this, you can always raise the goal. You can
Absolutely.
adjust that
Mm-hmm.
word count, that goal word count. And NaNoWriMo also has all of these little badges that you get. You could go in ahead of time, read those badges, and figure out, well, which of these are achievable goals? Which can
Right.
I aim to conquer, so that you go into it prepared for success, not setting yourself up for failure.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
So this is a few months late, but I don't know if y'all know this, but July is actually, I'm pretty sure it's the month of July, actually has a set your own goal on the NaNoWriMo website,
Oh,
where you can
okay.
set your own goal. Typically speaking, July is my editing month, and I set a goal for how many chapters I'm going to edit. But I believe you can also set amount of time spent. But so you can set
Nice.
your own goal
Yeah.
in July.
Very cool. I did not know that. I know they do like Camp Nano, different months of the year. So if you find November too hectic, which for a lot of people it can be, like, it's getting dark, it's getting cold, and seasonal affective depression can happen, and the holidays can be a hard time for people. So I love that Nano has kind of expanded to be more than just November.
They also have a month for April, but I don't remember. I think that one's a
Right.
set your own word count goal, but
Oh,
I
okay.
don't remember exactly.
Yeah, Camp Nano. Right. Okay, perfect.
April and July are Camp Nano, and then NaNoWriMo is November. So, and it was actually the month of April where I attempted my first 50,000 month, and I surpassed that. But I know that for me personally, like my favorite thing is to walk into it, and I'm not worried about word count or how often I write. My goal is to cross off bullet points on my list.
Oh,
and when you stop worrying about your chapter count and you stop worrying about your page count and your word count and did I write this day or that day? And instead, I'm just sitting here like, oh, I've got a cute little bullet journal. And I'm going to fill in all the little spots. That for me is, I soar right ahead because it's that little bit of, it's instead of it being, oh, I'm so far behind or, oh, I'm super ahead. I can quit for a day. It's, I filled in another bubble. So.
Oh, there's nothing more satisfying than checking something off a to-do list. Like 100%. I put stuff on my to-do list just so I can check it off because I already did it.
I'll put little like smaller dots underneath like one bullet point where it's literally like 3 lines of text and it's like I typed in those 5 words. I typed in the 5-word response. We're gonna check each of those off.
Yes,
little serotonin.
We need the dopamine just from the satisfaction of yes, I did this. I can cross it off. Yes, I love it. 3 Camp Nanos in July. Oh, April. Yeah, April is a poetry month. I love that. Yeah. So if you let's say your goal is to do nano and do the 50K. So usually I hear people break that down into 1,776 words a day, right? So you can kind of make it into a more manageable chunk of aiming for around that each day. Like I said, people can stack before the holidays, so they don't have as much to do in kind of that last week to catch up. But how do you guys approach meeting a goal like that? I know you guys don't always do that specific goal, but like what do you do to help prepare to meet a goal like that?
Try to prepare as much inspiration ahead of time as I can, especially, for those of you who are plotters, it might be, I don't want to say easier, but just having things laid out might make it slightly easier. But definitely, I need to have a music playlist all set. I don't want to be searching for that kind of stuff. The Pinterest board I mentioned before, if I can fill that up with a lot of stuff that really gets me in that place, for that mood for that particular piece, then that can help me a lot. Anything along those lines, really. Some of these, like notebooks I have, they're over there. I guess you can't see them actually. But sometimes I'll need to print out pictures. I don't know why. It just sometimes it helps a lot and paste them in there. It's like the feel of them for some reason. Things like that. And if there's anything, as a historical writer, if there's anything ahead of time, you're going to need to research, you can get that research done ahead of time, or at least make a list of what you need to research. That can help a lot too.
Oh, that'd be a huge time saver and keep you kind of from in the moment needing to switch gears to do research and then jump back into being creative. Because I always say, I hate absolutes, but I always say never, I don't encourage editing as you go personally, because switching between editing and writing can be very hard to get back into just creative and inspiration and all of that once you started to kind of analyze and be critical of things. But everything, everyone's a different person, and so what works for me will not work for someone else, and vice versa. Welcome back. Hello. I feel so bad that the weather's doing this to you right now. Totally fine though. What inspires you guys? How do you guys get inspiration for your writing or your plotting? So music playlists, mood boards,
TikToks.
TikTok. Okay, love it. Yes.
I think anyone who's watching this found that most of my readers found me from TikTok. TikTok is where I got my start. TikTok gives me ideas. The lumberjacks of this summer, where we had all these lumberjacks chopping wood, literally inspired my bear shifter book. It's all TikToks.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that's what I love asking people though, is like, where do you find inspiration from, like just random everyday things, you know?
Are you asking where do we find inspiration for our stories, or where do we find inspiration to keep going on NaNoWriMo?
Both. Definitely inspiration for your stories. Like, where do you find inspiration when you're feeling stuck or when you know you have a big writing jag ahead of you, I guess?
If I'm not usually feeling stuck because I know that if I just work through it, it's going to come to me later. But if there's a challenging scene, I'll probably play whatever music is playing during that scene to help get me in the mood for it.
Okay.
But in
So
terms of just writing inspiration, that can come from anywhere. Like you can't prepare to be inspired. It's just, you know, you're reading a book and one sentence inspires a whole story, or you hear a song, or you see something happen outside. It can come from anywhere.
Absolutely. Now for your music preferences, like, do you like instrumental? Like, how do you decide what music is right for a scene?
It depends on the characters.
Depends on the mood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like words.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally listen to K-pop when I write, just because it kind of gets that distracted back of the mind train that's just zipping around in the back of my head. It kind of distracts that because I can just get into the music but not pay attention to it as much. And then it helps me to focus on my writing because I'm not going to hear someone in the other room, or I'm not going to get distracted by how quiet it is or something like that. But I know like some people like curate playlists and have like instrumental or video game music as a great option for people. How about you, Kirsten? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like a good YouTube aesthetic, like Dark Academia. I look for Dark Academia Classical.
Yeah.
I can write all day. I have a certain playlist that like I hear it and I must have like trained myself like during the days when I was writing every single day, because I hear that and my mind's like, I must sit down, I must open the document, I must start writing. And the words I've trained myself somehow. Dark Academia playlists on YouTube.
That's a dream, is that we train ourselves to just sit down and write when we you know what I mean? Like I saw someone said they did that to their kid, that they started singing the cleanup song and their kid just like immediately went into cleanup mode, and they were like, I have untapped the gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, paradise is when the book is finished, but not the process of getting to a finished book, I think, for most of us authors. But yeah, what final things are you guys going to be doing just to get into nano mode? Like, do you I know Kirsha, you're the resident plotter here, so do you have like a series compendium or a Bible that you have that you prepare, or an outline, or how are you actually like physically prepping for nano?
I mean, I have a document where I will make notes as I go for reference of things that I'm likely to forget, but I don't really always plan a lot of that ahead of time.
Okay.
As sometimes I'm just discovering it as I go.
Yeah.
So I write down what I know, and whatever I don't know just pops up along the way.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Sorry, I feel like
Julia, something we didn't discuss yet is meal prep. That's something that I think is important to prepare for going into NaNoWriMo, is having a meal plan so that you can buy whatever you need ahead of time. You don't have to think about, you know, what am I going to eat here, and here. You already have it ready, so that is not sucking out some of your writing time or your inspiration time or problem solving.
Absolutely. I 100% love easy meals for NaNoWriMo. So like slow cooker meals, soups that you can kind of dump ingredients and leave on the stove to simmer, baking food. So just like throwing things in the oven and then you check on it in 45 minutes to an hour. Those are all very helpful. And definitely I'm a proponent of snacks at the writing station. Wherever you write, having a snack, having drinks, water, coffee, tea, whatever you need, I think is really important. What about for y'all?
Yeah, I try to make meals like that will last me a while so that I
Right.
don't have to cook constantly. I cook like everything. So yeah, so for me that's a great point, Tanya. I definitely do a lot of like roasts and stuff like that that I can just eat
Yeah.
for a while and not even think about it. You can do like, you know, if you plan like that, you know, and you cook a lot, you can do like a roast chicken that you can then take to use for a salad and take to use for sandwiches and everything else. And then you might have a
Mhm.
different roast that you eat for dinner and stuff like that. So, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can save time. I mean, that is like one of the fastest ways to make, you know, from scratch a meal that you don't
Right.
really have to think about.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's a great
fabulous.
idea. Stretching it all the way through the week, and you can just know ahead of time making this one big thing, and it's going to last me the whole week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and roasts are nice because they feel luxurious, even though it's literally like meat, veg, oven,
I
you
know.
know, but they feel so fancy when they come out and we can enjoy them.
Cold brew iced coffee, making a lot of cold brew in advance is my personal favorite thing.
Right.
That way, if I do get up in the morning and the house is quiet, I can immediately, like, there's no waiting for the coffee machine. We're
Mhm.
grabbing the coffee and we're going. It's time to go.
Right. It's in the fridge waiting for you ready. I love that. Yeah. So I think it's important. Yeah. If you are, you know, have a big goal, making everything else in your day easier, 100% will help you with that goal. Because I know a lot of people get decision paralysis. So if you're trying to decide what's going on in your story, you might not have the spoons to then be like, what am I doing for dinner? So I love the idea of having it already planned out or prepped or ready, just to make your life go smoother. For writing, 100%. I do want to give everyone time to talk about any exciting things going on in what they're doing right now, any announcements they have to make, or just let us know where we can find you online. So why don't we start with Elle? Anything exciting in your world?
Well, I just released a book.
Yeah, tell us about it.
And it's Bear Shifter. I only write plus size heroines, so it's a Bear Shifter romance inspired by TikTok.
Beautiful
And then
cover.
I have
Beautiful cover.
Oh, thank you. Arguably, my character descriptions are decided on what stock models I can find. That's
Right.
a side effect of writing something a little niche. And then I have the fourth book in this series coming out on the book birthday of this one this month. So that's what I have. But I'm Elle. You can find me on TikTok, but I'm everywhere. And
Yeah, is it just LM Drew on TikTok?
LM Drew Writes.
Oh, okay.
LM Drew Writes on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You know, I'm everywhere and yet nowhere. So I'm typically asleep when everyone else is online. So
oh yeah, that's the unfortunate time zone difference. And where can we find you online, Miss Tanya Todd?
Well, I'm across social media at Ms. Tanya Todd. You can find me on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. On YouTube, I encourage you to check out the recent series I just did on banned books. I read 7 different banned books and put together panels, and we discussed the importance of reading banned books, whether any book should be banned, and, you know, why this is happening right now, why there's such an increase in censorship right now. And it was so popular that I've been asked to do it again. And I have potentially some exciting partners to help with next year. So I'm excited about that. So read the books, watch the series, and then maybe you can give me ideas for next year. And you can also find me on IMDb.
And that is MS Tanya Todd, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then Christy, do you have anything exciting going on, and where can we find you?
At the moment, I'm actually having a little bit of a Halloween special going on my website. So if you go to christystratus.com, if you buy just one paperback, however many you want, but one paperback, you'll get a free Halloween gift, and you can choose which one you want on my website. So you can see this big picture of all kinds of Halloween goodies. I just thought it would be a lot of fun. So if you've been looking to buy my books for a little while and you haven't done so yet, just head over to my website and buy one directly from me. and you get to pick your goodie. And there's some really cool stuff in there, all different kinds of things, home types of things, kitchen types of things, some candy types of things, really something for everyone. So that's what's going on with me. That's exciting. And then, as always, I'm posting constantly, well, once a week it is, for my series, my Grimoire Society of Dark Acts series. And that is on Kindle Vella and Patreon. You can join there. It's a pay what you wish, starting at $1 a month. Patreon.com/Christy Stratus. And I publish a new episode every week. I'm on the second book in the series, and that's called Corrupted Magic. So we're up to, let's see, because I write way ahead of my episodes that are publishing. So the next one coming up is episode 14, I believe. So you can always find that publishing. And as for where you can find me, I just told you my website is christystratus.com. You can find all of my social media there, but I am also on Facebook, Instagram. I also do Lurking for Legends with 2 co-hosts. And you can find that streaming to my Facebook. And I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Pinterest, and I'm everywhere, pretty much everywhere under my name.
I'm going to have to find you on Pinterest because I'd love to see what your mood boards look like. And I appreciate that you are celebrating my favorite holiday, which is Halloween.
Yes, I love
it. Yes. So I might have to check out your website and get a book and some Halloween goodies.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then Kirsha, you just released a book. So tell us about your book.
It's called Son of Deception. I only released it just a few weeks ago. It's my very first book, but the second book is called The White Leaf Child, and it should be out in March. Yeah. So, and you can find me at KirshaFox.com, and I'm on TikTok, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram primarily. And
your book is adult fantasy, right?
It's adult fantasy.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of, the themes that she wrote about are wonderful too. So I highly recommend. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'll end the show by saying where you can find me. I just had a book re-released, so it was only out very briefly. And so I'm excited that Half-Blood Alliance is back on Amazon and available for purchase. And you can find me at hijinkswriter.com. Hijinkswriter on most social media except for TikTok, where it's Ginny and Tonic. That's JINNY and Tonic. Thank you so much for joining us. And it is always time to go indie now. Good luck with nano prepping.